I am starting my videos today talking about a video that Brittany Page posted yesterday about the conflicts of interest between Donald Trump and Dr. Oz, one of these wacky picks to run the government, who has hundreds of millions of dollars in investments and tens of millions of dollars that he will benefit from if he's made to the position that he's been appointed by Donald Trump, if the Senate confirms him. Go check out that video. It'll be linked below. And subscribe to Brittany Page's channel if you're someone who colors themselves interested in policy, in some of the topics that don't readily get talked about on YouTube in our space. Anyway, let's talk about Chris Murphy, a senator from Connecticut, a truth teller. There's a lot of good Democrats out there, only a handful who warrant criticism. And Chris Murphy is not one of the ones who warrant criticism. Yesterday, he was out there on MSNBC talking about Donald Trump's attacks on both his political opponents and the media. And he said very succinctly in two clips what I've been banging on about for years and years and years and years, about Donald Trump's motivations to attack Liz Cheney, to imprison Liz Cheney, these efforts that are already underway. And then he went into talking about attacks on journalism and what the effort is actually intended to do to silence journalists who have the protection of the Constitution, which Donald Trump has no concern about since he's signaled that he would love to terminate it based on the non-fraudulent 2020 election. But let's start with Chris Murphy talking about what's been going on with ally of democracy, not necessarily the Democratic Party agenda, but certainly democracy, Liz Cheney.
Important remedy right now is for this not to be normalized. I read all the headlines about the Liz Cheney criminal referral yesterday, and almost every single one of them in mainstream media played this straight. As if this was as if this was a normal, regular function of legislative power, instead of telling the truth, which is that this is made up out of thin air. There's not even a shred of a crime committed here. But if you read the headlines yesterday, you thought that Liz Cheney actually did something criminally wrong. And so as leaders, we can't accept that this is normal. As journalists, you can't accept that this is normal. The minute that we pretend that this is a normal exercise of executive power is the day that people give up fighting. So we've got these nomination fights coming up on Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. We should fight as Democrats.
And of course, I buried the lead like an idiot. He's also criticizing the mainstream media in their normalizing or legitimizing Donald Trump's calls for the prosecution, persecution, imprisonment, harassment of Liz Cheney. That's what it is. The media is complicit. They are once again they missed the moment during the first Donald Trump administration. They had a chance during this campaign to do the right thing and act correctly and not present Donald Trump and Kamala Harris to the American people as just regular old politicians who need to be dealt with on the same playing field, and then subsequently treating Kamala Harris more harshly. When there's policy questions to be asked, because she can answer them, because she had an intellect and an ability to articulate them, they grill her, and then Donald Trump can just say whatever he wants with no follow-up questions. Disgusting. Irresponsible, an abdication of their duty, their role, their constitutionally protected role in our society. Made up out of whole cloth. What's the words he used? Out of thin air. There is no criminality at all. We witnessed what took place on January 6th. We know what was being investigated. It was just for the congressional record and possibly to find out what can we do to prevent this from happening again. There was legislative intent behind the committee. Donald Trump doesn't like it because it exposes him as an insurrectionist, as a traitor to the United States, a seditious conspiracist. Yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of there'll be a protest in D.C., will be wild. 4-year anniversary. And here we are now walking into a situation where he's going to be inaugurated on January 20th at noon, and he will be president again, fulfilling his desire for retribution and revenge against people who attempted to hold him accountable for his treason against the United States. Now he's attacking Liz Cheney and people on the January 6th House Select Committee. He's also attacking journalists in both corporate media, mainstream media, but also individuals leveling threats to go after people like me, people like David Pakman, people in this independent media space. Here's that moment from Chris Murphy addressing that very thing.
I think it's really important to explain to people the why. Right? Why is Donald Trump engaged in this relentless campaign to try to silence journalists, media companies, and his political opposition? It's because he's trying to steal from you. He and his friends are in charge of government because they want to rig the rules in order to make them even richer. The billionaires that are in charge of this cabinet want to be multi-billionaires. Donald Trump will never be satiated. He wants to steal from ordinary Americans in order to make him and his Mar-a-Lago friends even richer. And the reason that he wants to silence his critics and silence the media is that he doesn't want anybody to notice the kleptocracy that he is building. Unless you tell that story, right, how does it impact you, right? Because, I mean, does the average citizen really care about whether ABC News settles a lawsuit or not? No.
This, I think, is very important. This element of this underlying more of a point of communication and messaging than it is getting to a greater truth that we weren't aware of. But how do we talk about this to the American people? How should you go about your day talking to people at work or your family or just general people that you meet? When you talk about politics, how should you talk about this? And that's it, because it makes it real in the lives of Americans just how little Donald Trump cares for them or about them and how much he does care about enriching himself and his cronies. That's why one of the reasons I opened talking about Brittany Page's video about Dr. Oz that I haven't had time to talk about because there's only so many hours in the day. But the conflicts of interest, the very just public, obvious conflicts of interest are legion with these people. From Pete Hegseth to all the others that are actual billionaires. And look, I don't think Dr. Oz is a billionaire yet, but he sure does want to be, especially if you look at the conflicts of interest that he will be paid handsomely, enriched handsomely, if indeed he gets this job. Because they want to privatize Medicare and Social Security and health care surrounding government benefits. And he's wildly entrenched in his investments in companies that provide that privatized service. Anyway, go watch her video. I won't ramble about it. It's great. Underappreciated channel, Brittany Page. If you haven't subscribed, you should. I want your opinions on this. I invite you to this conversation. You can comment below. That would be fantastic. Helps the YouTube algorithm gods to share this content with new people. Comment, like, make sure you're subscribed. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If you want to become a channel member and help produce these videos that I do, it would help independent media, especially this independent media. And I would appreciate it. You can click the join button below, become a channel member for $2 a month. You can go over to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. All those are a great way to help support this. Very grinding work. Can you tell I look very tired? Because I am very tired. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I'll see you next time. Until I do, be genuine and take care of one another.